In the first decades of the 20th century, years that historians often describe as 1910 and 1920, the United States faced a transformation that was neither poetic nor elegant. Roads were little more than uneven paths carved by horses, crude engines, and human persistence. Mud swallowed wheels, wooden bridges collapsed under modest loads, and long-distance freight was considered less a profession and more a punishment. It was in this harsh environment, far from polished European boulevards, that the machine later known as the Mack AC began its story. To understand its impact, one must first recognize how the world saw American engineering at that time. Many European observers, especially those from Germany, dismissed early American trucks as primitive, too large, too heavy, too unsophisticated, lacking the refined metalwork and precision machining that Europe was proud of. When early prototypes of what would become the Mack AC appeared around 1916, critics described them as unnecessarily bulky, machines built with brute force rather than intellectual design. Yet the engineers behind Mack held a different philosophy. They believed strength was not a brute response to ignorance, but a necessary answer to American landscapes. A truck designed for orderly European road networks could not survive the violent ruts, industrial loads, and rural expanses of the United States. Instead of creating something elegant for ideal conditions, they built something that could survive reality. The Mack AC did not bow to its environment, it confronted it head-on. The visual profile of the early AC prototypes was unsettling to traditionalists. A sharply inclined hood, chain-drive rear axles exposed to the elements, oversized tires capable of devouring terrain, and a stance that looked more like a mechanical beast than a refined automobile. German commentators, upon seeing photographs in trade journals, reportedly laughed at what they saw as crude engineering. They argued that a design without sleek drive shafts and polished bodywork could never survive serious industrial adoption. But criticism changed nothing in the factories of Allentown, Pennsylvania. While skeptics ridiculed, American workers hammered steel, cast housings, and perfected the chain drive system, a system that allowed torque delivery unmatched by contemporary European trucks. With chain final drives and a heavy-duty worm gear differential, the AC was built for punishment, not praise. And on the eastern seaboard, where ports overflowed with materials bound for inland factories, the Mack AC began earning respect one haul at a time. It transported coal over hills that defeated teams of horses. It carried stone for expanding cities. It pulled loads that engineers once considered impossible for a motorized vehicle. The laughter that once echoed across the Atlantic no longer felt justified. Something stubborn and undeniably powerful had emerged. While many trucks of the early 20th century were shaped by theoretical engineering principles, the Mack AC was shaped by work. Every bolt, every gear, every plate of steel was forged from a philosophy that valued endurance over elegance. In an era when European designers prioritized compact drivetrains, finely machined enclosures, and polished automotive aesthetics, the engineers in Allentown, Pennsylvania chose a different path. They designed a machine that could conquer conditions rather than adapt timidly to them. The heart of the Mack AC was a gasoline power plant introduced around 1916, delivering strength not measured by the sleek refinement of Continental engines, but by brute reliability. Rather than focusing on maximizing output from lightweight components, the engineers favored thick castings, oversized bearings, and cooling capacity meant to endure long climbs carrying industrial payloads. It was not a machine intended to be admired in a showroom. It was intended to pull stone, steel, lumber, and coal through mud that could imprison locomotives. One of its most defining traits was the chain-driven rear axle system. At a time when shaft-driven configurations were becoming fashionable in Europe, the use of exposed chains seemed primitive, almost agricultural. Critics mocked the design, claiming it belonged to horse-drawn traction engines, not modern motor transport. Yet those same chains allowed torque multiplication that shaft systems could not withstand. When a fully loaded AC climbed grades that engineers once believed impassable, the logic became undeniable. Function had triumphed over convention. The chassis reflected the same philosophy. Instead of a lightweight frame optimized for smooth roads, the Mack AC carried a ladder-style steel structure capable of resisting twisting forces from uneven terrain. It absorbed shocks not through delicate engineering subtleties but through mass and strength. Where European vehicles relied on refined suspension geometry, the AC simply refused to break. Even its exterior, with its iconic sloped hood and exposed mechanical elements, served purpose rather than aesthetics. The angle improved visibility for the driver when maneuvering in industrial yards and narrow urban corridors. The open configuration made field repairs faster. A worker with tools and determination could replace components without specialized equipment. The machine was not merely engineered, it was democratized for labor. Manufacturers across the Atlantic saw machinery as an extension of national pride and technological prestige. Mack saw machinery as a survival tool. This cultural difference shaped every decision. The United States needed trucks that could define new frontiers, not merely populate existing highways. The Mack AC became a symbol of that practicality. By the time fleets of AC models worked in quarries, steel mills, coastal ports, and expanding city centers, their reputation began shifting from crude oddity to indispensable backbone of American logistics. The same features that once drew laughter now commanded respect. Where some trucks failed under long-distance strain, the Mack AC endured mile after mile, often outlasting the very roads it traveled. It did not ask the world to change so it could function. It changed the world by functioning. A machine can be designed with confidence, built with purpose, and praised by its creators, but its worth is proven only when confronted by the world. For the Mack AC, that judgment did not come in controlled demonstrations or polite exhibitions. It came on shattered roads, in industrial yards where steel met sweat, and across distances that demanded more than engineering, they demanded resilience. The critics who mocked its form had measured machines in theories and expectations. The Mack AC was measured in miles, in tons, in years. In the growing cities of the United States during the late 1900 teens and early 1920s, construction surged beyond imagination. Towers rose from concrete foundations, and each building required endless shipments of timber, stone, metal, and brick. Horses could not sustain the pace. Railroads could not reach every street. Lighter trucks fractured under weight. The Mack AC stepped into this vacuum as a machine that did not fear labor. Fully loaded, it crawled up steep inclines that planners once believed impossible for motor transport, dragging aggregate to projects that defined new skylines. Ports along the eastern seaboard became proving arenas of their own. Ships arriving from Europe and South America unloaded cargo faster than infrastructure could absorb it. Muddy yards and cobblestone docks became hostile territory for refined machines. The chain-drive axle of the Mack AC, once criticized as outdated, allowed constant traction even when surfaces shifted under rain and industrial debris. Where other vehicles spun helplessly, the AC advanced with mechanical certainty. Coal operations across Pennsylvania and West Virginia saw something even more revealing. Trucks that entered the mines faced dust thick enough to choke combustion chambers, slopes that punished cooling systems, and loads that twisted frames until metal screamed. Many vehicles survived a season. Some survived months. The Mack AC survived years. Crews depended on it not simply as equipment, but as infrastructure. In dozens of communities, life continued only because those trucks continued. Industrial success alone might have secured its place in history. But global conflict reshaped the world, and the Mack AC, though never designed as an icon of war, found itself participating in one. When the United States mobilized during the years of the First World War, tens of thousands of machines were required to move supplies to railheads and ports. The AC, with its rugged frame and chain-drive rear axles, became a logistical backbone. Accounts from military depots describe long convoys hauling lumber, fuel, ammunition, and rations across routes that had defeated European-built trucks deployed experimentally in earlier stages of the conflict. Its uses did not end when armistice was signed. Surplus units returned to civilian service, now carrying scars of mud and metal fatigue. Many continued operating into the 1930s, long after their critics had vanished and long after newer machines replaced them in catalogs. Some served municipal fleets, others became fire tenders, snow haulers, road maintenance rigs, or crane carriers. A few retired only when cities finally paved roads strong enough to withstand progress. By then, the machine once mocked had reshaped reality. It had shown that engineering refined for perfection could be defeated by engineering refined for survival. Where early skeptics saw crude form, history saw purpose. The roads did not shape the Mack AC. The Mack AC shaped the roads. Machines vanish when their purpose ends, yet some remain long after their engines fall silent. The Mack AC was never crafted to represent a nation's industrial identity, yet it became one. Its influence stretched beyond its production years, echoing through the evolution of American trucking long after factories moved on to newer designs. As the 1920s matured into the 1930s, roads improved, fuel quality stabilized, and transportation needs shifted from brute extraction to longer-distance hauling. Chain drive systems, once essential, gave way to enclosed shaft-driven drivetrains that reduced maintenance on smoother pavement. The Mack AC did not resist obsolescence, it stepped aside. New models carried its genes in subtler forms, stronger frames, greater payload expectations, and engines designed not to impress on paper but to survive hardship. This shift was not merely mechanical. The Mack AC influenced an entire cultural understanding of what an American truck should be. It established a design philosophy where practicality outranked refinement, where honest structure mattered more than decorative form. When later generations embraced models like the bulldog-nosed Mack trucks of the mid-20th century, they inherited more than branding. They inherited an ethos founded decades earlier. Collectors and restorers of the late 20th and early 21st centuries preserved that legacy not out of nostalgia alone, but out of respect. Many AC units were discovered rusting at municipal yards, abandoned quarries, or forgotten storage fields. Each restoration required not simply new parts but new craftsmanship. Recreating chain drive components demanded machine shops capable of work rarely performed in modern industry. Yet enthusiasts persisted, rebuilding engines with cast iron sleeves, forging links for drive chains, and returning trucks to life not as museum ornaments but as demonstrations of human determination. Museums across the United States and parts of Europe showcase surviving AC models today, not as curiosities, but as artifacts that mark the rise of mechanized logistics. They stand alongside early tractors, steam haulers, and industrial locomotives as machines that turned society from localized labor to continental motion. Visitors who once might have echoed early critics now stand in front of them in quiet recognition, confronted by a truth that photographs never captured: the AC is not crude. It is purposeful. The most enduring legacy, however, is not housed in glass or steel. It lives on every road that stretches across a continent once considered too wild, too vast, too disconnected to conquer. The Mack AC helped prove that geography could be overcome with mechanical will. It did not rely on admiration. It relied on work. The laughter that once dismissed it faded into history, leaving behind something far louder: progress. What began as a machine mocked from afar became a foundation upon which a nation built its highways, industries, and identity. Its legacy is not glamour. Its legacy is endurance.